Mine says 4 o'clock. Can I start?
I'm just waiting for Graphics to start.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the agenda for the public hearing, Monday, April the 25th, 2016 at 4 p.m. in Council Chambers. So, welcome to this public hearing. I am going to read a statement from the chair and then a confirmation of notice requirements first. So I will read this. Maybe I'll read it on here. Statement of the chair at a public hearing. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 464 of the Local Government Act, RSBC 2015, to allow the public to make representation to council respecting matters contained in Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1085.95, 2016. Every person present who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. None of you will be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. However, it is important that you restrict your remarks to matters contained in the proposed bylaw. When speaking, please proceed to the microphone and commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. If they wish, members of council may ask you questions following your presentation. However, the function of council at this public hearing is to listen to you rather than to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. In accordance with the council procedure bylaw, presentations by members of the public shall be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes each. If a person has additional information that he is unable to provide within that time frame, he shall be given further opportunity to address council after all other interested members of the public have been heard a first time. Please refrain from applause or other expressions of emotion during this public hearing so that we may ensure as impartial a hearing as possible. After this public hearing is adjourned, council members will not speak to the public on this matter until after the matter has been dealt with at a public meeting. After this public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the presentations made at this meeting. Confirmation of advertising and posting requirements. Notice of the second public hearing was given in accordance with the Local Government Act and the Community Charter by distributing the notice as follows. Publishing advertisements in 2 consecutive editions of the Osoyoos Times on April the 13th and April the 20th, 2016. Placing the notice on the bulletin boards in the Town Hall and Planning and Development Services Department on April the 13th, 2016. Posting the notice on the town's website and distributing via e-news on April the 13th, 2016. Mailing individual notices to all owners and tenants of property within 60 meters of the subject property on April the 13th, 2016, and updating the public notice signage on the subject property with the date and time of the second public hearing on April the 14th, 2016. So the next thing that we will ask for is the summary of the staff report. Am I reading that part? Mm-hmm. Okay. Zoning bylaw addition. Okay, so zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.95 2016, addition of craft distillery as a permitted use. Zoning bylaw amendment number 1085.95 2016 received first and second readings on February the 15th, 2016, followed by a public hearing on March the 21st. This meeting is a second public hearing due to further information received after the first public hearing. The proposed amendments in this bylaw were initiated after Planning and Development Services received an application from Tumbleweed Spirits Incorporated in order to establish a small batch craft distillery to manufacture fine spirits. Specifically, the applicant is seeking to add craft distillery as a permitted use in the M3 Special Industrial Zone for the subject property located at number 7, 6001 Lakeshore Drive. In addition to the applicant's proposal, Planning and Development Services staff has reviewed whether there are select commercial zones that may also be suitable for accommodating craft distilleries. The zones identified as appropriate include the C1, Downtown Commercial, C3, Highway Commercial, and C4, Tourist Commercial zones. In relation to these amendments, the bylaw also proposes to add craft distillery as a defined term and amend Schedule 1, off-street parking, to address parking requirements for the craft distillery use. I'm now going to ask our senior planner, Dilla Swang, to give the report, please.
All right, thank you. So the text amendments that are proposed as part of the attached zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.95 2016 include adding a definition for craft distillery, adding craft distillery as a permitted use in the M3 Special Industrial Zone, permitting a craft distillery in the C1, C3, and C4 commercial zones, and amending Schedule 1 off-street parking. These amendments were initiated after Planning and Development Services received a zoning bylaw amendment application from Tumbleweed Spirits seeking to add craft distillery as a permitted use for the property addressed as Unit 7, 6001 Lakeshore Drive. Council gave first and second readings to the bylaw on February 15, 2016, and then proceeded to a public hearing on March 21, 2016. While no written submissions were received, approximately 10 members of the public, including the applicants from Tumbleweed Spirits and the owners of the subject property, attended the public hearing. A copy of the minutes is attached to this report. Staff also had the opportunity to meet with the applicant's craft distillery consultant, Mr. Malcolm Buchholz, and visit Douglas Distillery north of Oliver on April 7, 2016, to better understand the craft distilling process. As a result of additional information provided to staff in order to address the questions raised at the March 21st public hearing, a second public hearing has been scheduled for today. During the March 21st public hearing, some members of the public expressed concerns, such as the notification process of the proposed zoning amendment bylaw, potential fungus, fumes, and odors generated by distilleries, the location of the proposed craft distillery, fire safety, parking and traffic, and servicing impacts. The following, I will now go into more details and the findings in relation to the aforementioned points. So first, notice of public hearing. In advance of the March 21st and April 25th public hearings, notification was given in accordance with the Local Governments Act by publishing advertisements in 2 consecutive editions of the Osoyoos Times, placing the notice on the bulletin boards in the Town Hall and the Planning and Development Services Department, posting the notice on the town's website and distributing it via e-news, mailing individual notices to all owners and tenants of properties within 60 meters of the subject property, installing public notice signage in front of the proposed building, and updating the public notice signage with the second public hearing date and time. And the specific dates are listed in the report. If Council wishes to give the bylaw further consideration immediately after the public hearing, the notices for the second public hearing make mention of a special open meeting that will follow the public hearing. Staff has also made an effort to phone the residents who were present at the first public hearing to notify them of today's public hearing as a courtesy. Second, health concerns. With respect to health-related concerns in association with potential fungus, fumes, and odors, Mr. Buchholz addressed these concerns during his April 7th presentation. He has also prepared a memo that provides additional details on Baudonia connoissensis, a fungus that is associated with whiskey production. Although there are instances of whiskey fungus in certain distilleries located in the United States and Canada, the fungus usually occurs in large-scale distilleries where whiskey is aged in a significant number of oak barrels. The applicant has noted that whiskey production is currently not in the proposed distillery's business plan, and the focus will be on vodka and gin. If Tumbleweed Spirits were to consider producing whiskey in the future, the quantity would be in very small batches, similar to other craft distilleries in the Okanagan. With respect to potential fumes and odors, the applicant stated that the fermentation process utilizes closed-top tanks, which help mitigate the release of odors. In addition, it is not anticipated that emissions will be generated since the alcohol is vaporized in the distillation column and then condensed and captured as a liquid during the distillation process. In terms of the location of the proposed craft distillery, the addition of the craft distillery use is proposed for the M3 Special Industrial Zone and the commercial zones that already allow a licensed establishment as a permitted use, so namely the C1 Downtown Commercial, C3 Highway Commercial, and C4 Tourist Commercial zones. As shown in the Attachment 8 summary table, municipalities in BC that allow distilleries or breweries typically permit them in the commercial or industrial zoned areas. Since the M3 zone permits a range of uses such as service industries, manufacturing plants, food processing plants, auxiliary retail sales and offices, veterinary services, dry cleaner and laundromat, and cafe, coffee shop, and restaurant, the addition of a craft distillery use would be compatible with the general uses that are currently permitted in this zone. The craft distillery use was not considered for the M1 general industrial and the M2 heavy industrial zones, which is the Buena Vista Industrial Park, since these zones would be more suitable for accommodating larger distilleries that are more industrial in nature. Fire safety. The applicant has been having ongoing discussions with the senior building inspector with respect to the BC Building Code and Fire Code regulations for distilleries. Any building code or fire code requirements for the building will be addressed at the building permit stage. The Liquor Control and Licensing Branch also requires that the distillery is in conformance with the BC Fire Code requirements for fire prevention and protection. Parking and traffic. A general rate of 1 off-street parking space per 40 square meter of gross floor area is proposed for the craft distillery use. Based on the existing building's approximate area of 223 square meters, a total of 6 parking spaces will be required. With respect to parking arrangements, 5 parking spaces in front of the building and 1 stall on the south side of the building were initially proposed. However, in order to ensure that the parking spaces do not encroach upon the Lakeshore Drive rights-of-way, 3 parking spaces will instead be provided in the front, 1 space will remain on the south side, and 2 spaces will be relocated to the rear of the property. The property owners noted that they have taken steps to provide the 2 additional parking spaces in the rear. There is also room to accommodate a tour bus in the rear of the property. For any craft distilleries proposed in the C1 zone, the current established rates of 1 off-street parking space per 50 square meters for non-residential uses will be maintained, reflecting the availability of shared parking in the area. The summary table in Attachment 8 also identifies the applicable off-street parking requirements from other jurisdictions for distilleries or breweries. Most of the municipalities determine parking space requirements either by calculating the sum total of parking requirements for each use class, so for example, a combination of manufacturing and retail, or by establishing a parking rate specifically for a distillery or brewery use. And that is similar to the proposed Schedule 1 off-street parking amendments in this bylaw. More generally, in regards to the traffic concerns that were expressed, especially at the Main Street and Lakeshore Drive area, there would need to be further discussions between the town's Traffic Safety Committee and the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure regarding the potential to implement traffic signals at the intersection. Servicing impacts. The subject property is currently connected to the municipal sewage system, but is not connected to the town's water system, and this is along with 3 adjacent properties on Lakeshore Drive. In terms of the waste that will be generated by the craft distillery, the solid components, such as the spent grains, will be removed from the site and taken to a local farmer or feedlot. With respect to the wastewater, since the specific waste characteristics, such as the pH levels, the BOD and COD organic material concentrations, and the total suspended solid concentrations are not known until wastewater samples taken from the distillery are tested, True Consulting, which is the town's engineer, has recommended to the applicant a couple of options for managing the effluent, which include separating the high-strength wastewater for disposal and at the landfill, and once the proposed craft distillery is in operation, effluent tests may determine that the wastewater is innocuous, allowing the town to further consider the acceptance of processed water through its sewer system, or fully complying with the requirements of the town's industrial waste bylaw number 314, which will require the installation of pre-treatment works. And staff will continue to work with the applicant to identify the preferred wastewater treatment option. However, whichever option is selected, the town will ensure that it meets municipal standards. Moving on to the implications for the community. The proposed craft distillery use would enhance the tourism industry, broaden economic opportunities, and promote a mix of uses in the community. Organizational implications. A building permit will be required subsequent to the zoning bylaw amendments process. In terms of budget, there are some additional costs associated with the scheduling of the second public hearing, including the newspaper advertisements and the mailing of individual notices. Significant dates. The BC Liquor Control and Licensing Branch has granted an amended approval in principle for the applicant's proposed distillery manufacturing facility on April 14th, 2016. And in terms of sustainability, the proposed use would contribute to economic sustainability by diversifying the range of businesses and new opportunities. And the options are listed. So option number 1, council convenes into a special open meeting following the public hearing to give third reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.95 2016. Number 2, council defers giving third reading to the bylaw until a later date. Number 3, council requests further revisions to the bylaw before proceeding further. And number 4, council does not take any further action. And staff recommends option number 1.
Thank you very much, Ms. Swing. We appreciate you looking into all of the concerns that were brought up at the last meeting and addressing them in this report. Thank you. The next on the agenda is correspondence received. There was one letter which is included in this, so I'm not going to. Should I be? I don't read that. I'm just reading the 2 that were received this week.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So this one is from Vern Shear. Our concern has always been the traffic flow on Lakeshore Drive and Highway 3 intersection. With current flow of tourist vehicles and pedestrians, children attempting to cross Highway 3 to visit Rattlesnake Canyon, where not even a painted crosswalk or any signs are placed, plus the flow into the motel and restaurant adjacent. Add to this the corner of the proposed Haynes Point property being developed for a winery. They have adequate land to provide for patrons parking, but traffic must still reach that location also. Council must consider the risks of not providing controlled intersection here, along with the limited parking spots at the proposed subject property, 6001 Lakeshore Drive. Please consider what one's life is worth crossing a highway. A suggested $300,000 tab to install traffic lights is certainly justified should you decide to allow development attracting additional vehicular traffic here. Thank you for allowing us to be heard. Vern Shear. I have another letter from Gary and Trudy Hoffman. We wish to advise you that we are in total agreement for allowing the zoning amendment bylaw to be passed. And that's from Hoffman Motors.
Oh,
So,
Madam
yes.
Mayor, I believe there is one more correspondence.
It was included in the minutes.
It was in addition along with the other two emails that were submitted to the town.
Who is it the letter from? Would you like me to read that as well? Thank you. I wasn't given that. Thank you. To Osoyoos Council, while I am generally a strong proponent of new development in Osoyoos, I must object to zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.95/2016 in the following regards. The location of the craft distillery must not be near a residential area, i.e. Lakeshore Drive, as proposed, because there will be gaseous effluent that will be an annoyance to nearby residents. Further, any processing and or treatment of liquid byproducts may also produce offensive gaseous effluent into the air adjacent to residential housing. I would support the amendment if the craft distillery were located in the industrial area near the airport. Regards, Brian Fultonson. So thank you for those letters. The next thing that we're going to do is presentations, and I do have a list here. There will be. I will read out the person's name on the list. Would you please come up to the microphone and speak for a maximum of 5 minutes? As you heard at the beginning, if you wish to speak again after all of the other speakers, we can do that as well. Please make sure that you address the chair. Thank you. First on the list is Osmond Abbott.
The applicant didn't want to speak.
Pardon me?
The applicant didn't want to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. The applicant, I believe, is number 2 on the list. Is that all right? And
it doesn't matter whichever order you want to put it in.
I'm just going by the list of the people signing in. What is the correct procedure here? Should we go by the list?
Usually, the agenda says that the applicant can make a presentation.
Absolutely.
And then can be available for questions after the presentations are made.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. So the applicant is Andrea.
Do we just want to go into questions or presentations from the public? Well, the applicant will have some closing remarks at the end.
Rather than speaking now.
Yes.
Not a problem. So we'll we'll ask you to come back up, Mr. Abbott.
Now we know how it's done. Thanks for having me speak again. Thank you. My name is Osmond Abbott, and I'm at 43 Bayview Crescent. As I spoke last week, and I'm going to reiterate some of the things that I said, just a quick little speech, and I'm representing Sharon Jansen at 38 Bayview Crescent, Andeep Gill at 45 Bayview Crescent, Tim Bird at 32 Bayview Crescent, John McClellan at 37 Bayview Crescent, Jerry Evans at 45 Bayview Crescent, myself and my wife, Kelly, and Yolanda, who's here, Wydell, I should say, who's here at 41 Bayview Crescent, and Wayne Richards at 8 Bayview Crescent. And I just want to say, we do want the craft distillery with 1 block or less from our homes. Therefore, we oppose the addition to the craft distillery in this M3 zoning. The area is zoned to protect the people who live here and have purchased homes in a very close proximity to the area. If you add the craft distillery to M3 zone, you will no longer have any control over the number of distilleries or types of distilleries, which would be following. Air pollution, odors inside our homes, outside our yards, excessive water uses when we're on water restrictions, and considerable excess water waste going into our sewer system. Now, I know you've approached quite a few of these before, but I represent these people, and this is what they want me to say. The highly inflammable liquor will be within 1 block or less of our homes and could be a fire hazard and could attract more distilleries within this small area to become even more dangerous. We oppose this addition because the lack of parking increased the traffic, odors, and disposal of grain waste. And also, once you open the door and the amendments made, you have very little control in stopping what other distilleries or other things that might come into place. And where I grew up and went to school, there was a distillery in our area, and we're very familiar with what it smells like every Monday morning when everything was started to work. So as of my own personal experiences, I would just like to say thank you very much for letting me speak. And if you like a list of these names of people, I'm certainly willing to give them to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abbott, and we certainly appreciate the fact that you have that you've taken the time to come and speak to us again. So, Ms. Sidark, you're not going to speak at this time. You're going to wait to the end? Okay, good. We will. Could I ask Wydella Dulcetta, please? You're next on the list to speak. Would you like to speak?
Well, I can, but I hadn't planned on it.
Oh, well, your name is, you've written your name down on the list.
Well,
That's
I
why.
was signing in.
Yes, that's, but you.
Sorry, my mistake,
No, that's all right.
Madam Chairman,
You don't have to
the
talk
board.
if you don't want
Yeah.
No, I will,
Oh,
because I feel very strongly on this.
Good.
My name is Wydella Dulcetta. I live at 43 Bayview Crescent. I am still not convinced, although I must thank you people for doing the work that you've done, and you've obviously looked into all the areas that we mentioned before. However, I am not convinced about the into the air. What do you call it? Effluent? Mm-hmm. Effluent's usually water, though, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm still not convinced about that because we're getting answers from the people who want to build the place to incorporate this business. I'm very worried about it because, as I said, we have 3 people in our house, all with lung problems. I do not want to have to sell my home and move elsewhere. My husband's 81 and I'm 77, and believe me, I'm past doing that. And my daughter moved here specifically to look after us. Mind you, we're doing most of the looking after, but she came to look after us when the time came. And unfortunately, it is coming very quickly because I am not doing as well as I used to. Getting up and speaking to you would not have bothered me in the past. I was a school teacher, and I would take on kids anywhere from 12 to 16, and you know what they're like then. Please excuse the tears. It's because I feel so passionately about this. I wish these people nothing but the best. I hope they do start their business, but not near my place. Everybody says that. I know they do. I'm not just saying it because it's near my place. I'm saying it because I really believe, and no, he can talk till he's blue in the face, I am not convinced that there will not be health repercussions for the people who live in our area. And I don't think that is right. We've been here 16 years. I was hoping to be here until they put me in a box and burn me. But if it does go through, I'm going to have to move if there's any of this problem with my lungs or with my husband's lungs or even with my daughter's lungs. She's not as bad as we are, but my husband, as I told you before, has got silicosis of the lungs, which is like Meniere's disease. I am badly, badly, badly asthmatic. I realize that it's probably going to go through anyway, but at least you've given me a chance to air my views, and I do thank you for that. And I do thank the council for all they do for our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rhodes would like to ask a question. Mrs. Dulcetta, would you?
Oh, I'm
yes.
sorry.
No problem.
I do apologize.
Go ahead.
Thank you. At the last meeting that you attended,
Yes.
there was a lot of discussion about the fungus aspect
Yes.
of it. And
And I understand, I've been doing some research. I understand it's more, it happens more often when it's whiskey production.
yeah, that was going
Yeah.
to be my question.
Yeah, no, I've been doing my homework.
Okay,
I'm not, as
So
I
you're
told you
satisfied
before, I'm
with-
not stupid. Well, I'm not satisfied because they could always stop making whiskey because
Yeah.
you're leaving the door open to them. But I'm willing to try and work with people to give them a chance if you people pass it.
Okay, yeah, I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that we were clear with that aspect.
Yeah, I saw that in there, and I thought, that's what I read. You know, so I have been looking up on the internet, although I'm learning lots, believe me, because I was not one of these internet followers.
Well, then
I
there's some
play my
positive
games on it, and that's it. Pardon?
I say there's positive outcomes.
For me,
Yeah.
I hope there are even more positive ones, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Could end up with a Twitter account at this point.
Don't
Kath-
stop me on Twitter.
Kathy Hebert, please.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor McCordoff and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and show our support for zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.95, 2016. As I submitted a letter stating our support, I assume you have all read it, so I won't reread it here again this afternoon. However, as a business and property owner in Asuyas, my husband Tim and I wanted to come forward and share some information I don't think was made clear at the last public meeting. However, I think it was made clear today with you reading it, Dilys. So, but first and foremost, I think we need to remind people that the 6001 Lakeshore Drive property and the surrounding area is already zoned M3 Special Industrial. I know I have heard several times we would prefer to see this industry go up to the industrial park, but I want it made clear that this area is already zoned industrial, and it has and has been known for years as the East Side Industrial Park. This industrial area actually predates the Buena Vista Industrial Park on the West Bench by at least 15 to 20 years. Our particular building was constructed in 1977, and many of the surrounding businesses had been there for many years prior to that. This zoning bylaw is to only add craft distillery as a permitted use in the existing zoning. The M3 special industrial zoning already permits some of the uses that were already mentioned, such as dry cleaning, laundromats, manufacturing, fruit packing, warehousing, trucking, veterinary services, animal works, public works facilities, recycling, car wash, and a recycling depot. I think the addition of a craft distillery in that neighborhood would be a nice, quiet, clean business and not subject to as many fumes or things as, say, a recycling depot or a fruit manufacturing plant. In other words, I think, well, I know, if we had decided to rent out this unit in our building to any of the aforementioned businesses, we would not be having a public hearing here today. Asuyas needs industry. We need to welcome new businesses to our town because new business equals new jobs. With the possible closure of our high school hanging over our heads and taking up a lot of our time and energy. It clearly shows that our town needs to attract new families to move here. However, those people need jobs, and we need industry to provide those jobs. We need to create a welcoming community that helps new businesses move in. We must avoid NIMBYism, which is a word I just learned, which means not in my backyard. We need to focus on the bigger picture, which is keeping Osoyoos socially and economically strong. Again, let us express our full support for this bylaw. Tumbleweed spirits and future craft distilleries will fit nicely into the general agricultural and tourist industry of our area and will be a valuable addition to our local economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
Questions?
Anybody have any questions? No, you explained it very well. Thank you. Our next speaker is Randy Imey. No.
Kathy took all the windows.
Kathy's done it all. Okay. So could we ask Andrea Zadorek to come up and...
Yeah, I would like to see some words. I don't know if there's everybody's name on this list covered. Did you have
Oh, there's Grant Steedley.
Grant?
That's me.
Grant.
So,
Can you state your full name and your address, please?
my name is Grant Steedley from 8486 Gallagher Lake Frontage Road. I'm the owner and distiller of the distillery that is just outside of Oliver in Gallagher Lake in the regional district. So I'm here to offer my support as well, Madam Chair. There's a lot of fear, and we've had some visitors at the distillery, and I had those same fears in the Gallagher Lake area. I think we've addressed all those fears, especially for residents in the area. Big concerns about fumes, and I encourage members to come and visit our distillery to see what we're about. Sometimes those fears are from the unknown, and these operations are very small in comparison to the larger distilleries, contribute to the local economy, contribute to tourism. They're fantastic, and we are an integral part of our community, and we're going to support other craft distilleries in the province. It's something that's really growing in Canada, and BC is leading the way, and they've put restrictions in place to allow the industry to grow on a small scale. So we see things like 50,000 liters of production. This is to keep the industry small. We have to use 100% BC agricultural products in the making of our spirits. That supports the local economy. And as you can see in the agricultural region, this lends itself really well to the number of distilleries that are being put up, I'll say hopefully Osoyoos, all the way up to Kelowna. So I'm here to lend my support for that.
Well, thank you very much. We do appreciate you coming and providing that information. Anybody have any questions?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Councillor Youngberg.
Hi.
Hi.
I've made the visit to your distillery. Great operation. The gin is pretty good.
It's excellent.
I think you sold out when you came to the market last summer,
Yes,
so I tasted it there.
And we come to the farmers market, and that's we come to the Osoyoos market, and we're at the Penticton market, which is a tremendous privilege for us to come to those markets. We're allowed to come to those markets because we're a craft distiller. Commercial distillers in the province do not have that privilege.
So my question is, are you on a tour? Are you on a set tour basis? For an example, if they do tours of wineries, do they include your distillery to visit?
We have a number of tour companies that come and visit us. Absolutely. We're not on a set tour schedule.
No. And so what size of vehicle do they usually drive when they come to
It's
see you?
usually those small, short, small,
wine shuttle
15-passenger.
kind of vehicle?
Yeah, we don't
Okay.
see those 45-passenger buses showing up. And we don't encourage that either.
Not
We're not a
often.
big enough facility to handle that.
Okay, thank you.
But
I
to
want
be-
one one-on-one. So.
Sorry, to be fair, I believe that in Kathy's letter, she did say that there was room at the back of the... Have you cleared out some of Tim's stuff out of the way? Is that why? There's so there's room for a bus or a small tour at the back of the facility, should it go through. Thank you.
And that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, great
Yes,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Councillor Rhodes and then Councillor Campbell.
Well, thank you. I haven't been to your place, so I'm going at it from a different angle here. The concerns of the residents in that area can never be minimized. They're important.
Absolutely.
For them to come and stand in front of us, we treat everything the same. Is the process of, is it gin that you produce?
We do gin and whiskey, so we are
Okay.
aging whiskey on site.
So I'm trying to draw a parallel between this.
Absolutely.
Is the brewing process the same? And I'm wondering if you could comment, and I know this is a multi-tiered question, but the air pollution, the excess water, the flammability of the product, and the odor and those other things, how did you mitigate with the people that were in your area where you are when you first started thinking about it and then through your development process?
To give you a size of the scale, we're very small. We hope to produce 5,000 liters this year at the distillery. To give you an idea, larger distilleries like Crown Royal in Gimli, Manitoba, much larger scale, those guys produce a minimum of 20,000 liters in a day. So those guys are making more by coffee break than we are in a full year. So the scale is not even there. Now, for the amount of alcohol that we have on site, we have a slope concrete, the drains. We brought an engineer in to see at what point would we reach the lower explosive limit. I think he said, I would have to refer back, but it was something like 14 days it would have to sit on the floor with no air disturbance before we even reach the lower explosive limit. The odors, was a concern that was brought up by residents, and for me, it was even a concern. If there was going to be a lot of odors, outside of the distillery, there's really nothing. We start out in the same way as a craft brewery. So we're the same size. We're doing the same base spirits. We're started from 100% grain. There's really no smell outside on the fermentation end of things. On the distillation, it's a closed system, so the alcohol vapors aren't in the air, so they don't waft out. If they're wafting out on the street, that's my profits going out the door, and they're very small, so we try and capture all that. So.
Where does your effluent go? Does it go right into the Okanagan River, or is there a treatment process? Because you're pretty
have you
close
been
to
to the
there.
distillery? No.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
No,
I think
we're
that was the
going
first thing I
to the
said,
Sunkalkameen Business Park, the OIB sewage treatment facility, and they were just here at the distillery this week. So, and we discussed, and we've gone over with them multiple times about the effluent that we're putting into the system. We have an organic system that's going in. I mentioned some of the concerns that they were having in town here, and if that was a concern for them, and they have. Really, we're producing so small amount that it's not even significant. They're more concerned about some of the residential waste that people are putting into their system than we are. So,
Good. We okay?
Yeah, that answered my question.
Carol, did you have another question?
No, not for this gentleman, thank you.
Oh.
I have for the applicant.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate your giving us your concerns about this, and we like to. And I'm sorry that we weren't able to come on the tour with the rest of staff. We had other meetings on that day, so we couldn't join it. But
you're more than welcome anytime.
Thank you so much.
Those meetings were dry.
Oh, were they? There no sampling?
I should have brought
Okay.
some with me.
Yes, you should have. That would have been a really good thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
There's a gentleman.
May I have a question?
Oh.
Do you have any residents within the 60 meters?
Yeah.
A residential area, 60 meters away?
Yes.
Okay,
We
I was
have
just curious.
we have a 100-unit development in behind us. It's probably just outside of that.
Is that 60 meters?
It's probably just outside of that 60 meters, but the residents in my neighborhood walk by the distillery with their dogs.
Okay.
Yeah. My neighbor has who's definitely within 60 meters. So
Okay.
no concerns at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, if he hasn't told me.
Thank you. That's a good question, and I'm wondering if we could show the map. There is a map here which shows which properties are within 60 meters.
That's across the street.
It should be page 21 of the agenda package.
Yeah. So that's why those properties were notified. It's page, yeah. It's
Page
attachment 5.
21.
Yeah, I don't have that on here.
Oh.
Oh.
But,
Attachment
It's
5.
attachment 5. It's attached to the actual report.
the report?
Yes.
Thank
Just a
you.
clarification, they weren't notified or contacted because of potential impacts, but it's just because the 60-meter buffer for contacting people is the requirement,
Yes.
no matter what kind of rezoning we were talking about.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So it was just that there was a map here showing, and that's
Yes.
why I thought it was worth, it's,
I've seen it.
no, it looks with a big blue circle.
Yes, it's in here.
It's attached. Should be attachment 5.
There it is. That's the one. So those are the properties that would have been notified via a letter. And I do believe that all of the people that were here at the last meeting were also contacted by phone to ask them to.
Yes, as a
Yeah.
courtesy, we did try our best to contact them.
Thank you very much. So you can see the map right there. Okay, can I ask Andrea Saradek would you like to make any closing comments or answer any of those questions that were brought up?
Yes, thank you. Mayor, councillors, staff, colleagues, neighbors, and friends. I would once again like to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing us to speak here today. My husband Mike and I are extremely excited about the prospects of establishing Tumbleweed Spirits, the first craft distillery in Osoyoos, which is a vision inspired by our passion and enjoyment of the Osoyoos lifestyle that we developed well over a year ago. The craft distilling industry is experiencing a renaissance in growth led by British Columbia, which is home to over half of Canada's 70-plus distilleries, craft distilleries. Each craft distiller offers a unique product offering that is linked to both creating a unique destination experience as well as utilizing locally grown and sourced ingredients. It is the essence of this craft that has led to this tremendous appeal and demand in the market for local and sustainable products that all generations and age groups have been attracted to. Osoyoos is one such destination with its tremendous bounty of locally grown fruits and botanicals that we intend to incorporate into our premium vodkas and gins, thus offering a truly unique tasting experience. We've been working very closely now for several months with the town's planning department in order to ensure that all the legal and regulatory requirements are properly met and addressed, particularly all the concerns that have been raised by the citizens at the first public meeting as well as this public meeting. I should point out, craft distilling is a highly, highly regulated industry from all levels of government, from local through to provincial and federal. And we must comply with all building code and fire code requirements. We have been and continue to work very closely with the Osoyoos Building and Fire Inspector. And just to address one of the concerns that was raised about water demand, we're actually on our own water well. This is one of the only sites in town that still operates on its own water well. And as far as the effluent disposal, as Dilys had mentioned in her report, our effluent is actually a fertilizer-grade effluent, but we will not be releasing anything into the sewage system. The city has asked that we retain it and dispose of it off-site, either in the landfill, or hopefully I can find a farmer that will take it to fertilize their fields. As far as the spent grains, there's actually a demand for spent grains, believe it or not. The feedlot will take it away for free. So highly, highly organic material on all levels. Some other concerns that were raised in the first public meeting in March were in the regards to odor and fungus. And I want to really, really emphasize and stress and ensure to all our neighbors and colleagues that in no way, absolutely no way, will we be producing any type of a fungus or a bad odor. And you've heard Grant Stevely speak here today as well on his experiences with the Double Ass Distillery in Oliver, where similar concerns were raised and we believe were alleviated. We've been working, as I said, very closely with the planning department to provide all the technical information that they need to mitigate these concerns. At some times, however, we may take on the aroma of a bakery, which I think we're all familiar with, because our main ingredients are grain, water, and yeast. As Dilys also mentioned, all of our production will be via closed fermentation top tanks, minimizing or eliminating any concern for odors. The fungus creation simply does not apply to us because it's 100% a function of scale and a function of barrel aging of whiskey. And some of you may have visited Kentucky or Tennessee, where there are these large whiskey aging houses that are literally the size of football fields, where they're aging hundreds of millions of gallons of whiskey, where there is known to be a fungus that is created that is associated to the evaporation of the alcohol through the aging barrels. And we see this in the wine industry as well. So it's not an uncommon phenomena, but it's 100% associated to whiskey aging as well as to a large-scale operation. Tumbleweed Spirits initially is not looking to produce any aged whiskeys. Down the road, if we were to do that, it would certainly be on a very, very small scale, and that would be something we would have to determine whether it's actually even viable for us or not to do that. But absolutely no concerns with respect to the technical aspects of the fungus production. In regards to the concerns over parking, we've worked very closely with our landlords, Tim and Kathy Hebert, and I think we've addressed that concern by ensuring that there's adequate space, particularly in the back, for, as Mayor mentioned, tour buses, if we so choose to have tour buses, and if we're so fortunate to have some tour buses visit. So the parking issue has been addressed. Osoyoos is a wonderful destination, and we want to complement that with the addition of its first craft distillery, again, using locally sourced ingredients and products and building on this new emerging business sector, which we will believe to create jobs and enhance the destination experience. Lastly, and in closing, I'd like to leave you with our mission statement. At Tumbleweed Spirits, we make vodka the way vodka should taste. We make gin that redefines and reinvigorates the gin sipping experience. From BC-grown grains harvested at the peak of perfection, to old European filtration methods, to the agricultural bounty of the South Okanagan, our vodka and gin will make a visit to Osoyoos an experience to savor. Thank you all once again. We most sincerely hope that our rezoning application will be approved and that we'll be able to bring this exciting craft distilling renaissance that has captured many other communities in the Okanagan, British Columbia, and elsewhere across Canada to the town of Osoyoos. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rhodes had a question. Oh, sorry. I didn't.
No, it's okay. I think she's answered.
Okay.
But the only one question I have for planning is on the water usage, because it comes from a well.
Yes.
What type of monitoring are we doing for the effluent going into the sewer system, since our ponds continually get a little oversaturated in the summertime?
So in terms of the effluent that's going to be generated, that were True Consulting, those were, they did recommend the two options. So one of them is either getting all of the wastewater, so the effluents, and removing it and to the landfill, or True Consulting also recommended either full compliance with the town's industrial waste bylaw and ensuring that all of the standards are being met, and that would require pre-treatment works on site. So I think in the meantime, the first option, which would be removing all of the wastewater and bring it to the landfill, would be the most viable option. But we will be working with the applicant and determining the preferred option for that.
So, and then my next concern was just the cost of doing that new effluent disposal treatments system. Have we got budgeting for that?
No, and I really don't think we're going to need to do that. I actually think that because it's highly organic material, that we're going to try to work with the local farming community.
Disposal of it.
Yeah, disposal of it. Yeah.
Okay, sure, yes.
So, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for all your words. There was one thing that you brought up that I'm glad you mentioned it, and that has to do with how it's regulated. I'm wondering if you could tell me who that is that regulates it, and do they inspect on a regular basis? And are they a government department that would be responsive to neighbor complaints? You know, I know in the perfect world we want everything. We want your business to be successful and all the residents in the area to be happy and going about their lives in a positive way. Is it a department that they could complain to if any of these things that we've talked about are occurring? And do you feel that they would be responsive to that as well?
Well, one thing that we won't have any shortage of is inspectors. I can assure you of that, because there are inspectors on 3 levels of government. Initially with the local government. We've been working with the local building and fire inspector, Neil, on that issue. So he's been very, very closely aligned with the work that we've been doing to ensure that we comply with the BC Building Code, the Canada Building Code, and the BC Fire Code. The BC Fire Chief, who is responsible for this region, this is known as Region 4, South Okanagan. He resides in Kamloops. He's been notified of this project. He will inspect the facility prior to finalizing all our permits and approvals. On the taxation side, there's equally as many inspectors, although they're probably less interesting to you. But from a taxation side, there's the excise tax, which is the federal government. They will be doing an inspection of the facility. There's also the liquor distribution branch, which we must enter into with an agreement, a contract of sales and manufacturing with the liquor distribution branch. There's also the BC Ministry of Justice, which is the entity that actually has issued the first approval in principle, who have also to approve of our manufacturing license. But from a day-to-day inspector perspective, it's really the key for us, CJ, is working with the local inspectors. So ensuring that we meet the local town requirements. And so we've been working very closely with Neil on that. And, you know, there's the level and frequency of inspections will be very, very frequent.
Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, I don't think your second part of your question was answered. Having a background in the industry a little bit, I could certainly tell you that inspections are common and frequent. I think Councillor Rhodes' other question was, should there be concerns from noise, from fumes, from anything within the community? Would any of those entities be the ones to be contacted? And I believe the answer to that is no, that would stand as more of a municipal issue.
That would
unless
be my
I'm wrong.
understanding.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and certainly, thank you very much, Doris. We'd be very, very responsive to any such claims that were raised to us, and the first line of defense would be for Neil to go down and talk with the owners and proprietors and find out whether there was a problem with how the system was operating. And if there's some question which arose, which we cannot get a clear answer to, we would ask that some outside experts be taken in. So we are totally okay with the operations of the facility and the health of the nearby neighbors. So we'd not take this responsibility lightly at all.
Good. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate hearing all of the points of view of all of the people that have come forward today, and the owners and the gentleman from Oliver. I just think that this is why we have a public hearing, to get all of this information out in front of the public, talk about it, get questions answered. I certainly appreciate all the time that that Dillis and Alen have put in, our planning department, to making sure that that everything was dealt with, and staff. And that's really what we want to do, is make sure that when we make a decision, it's based on the correct information, and and we try and compromise and do things the way that we feel is best for the town. And that's why we're here. Sometimes it takes a little bit of jiggling back and forth, but we absolutely appreciate all the information that everyone has presented today. Did you have something else that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, it's okay. Just to echo something you had just said, this is the first hearing of this nature I've been a part of, and actually I've quite enjoyed it for the reason of the initial hearing. A lot of questions or concerns were brought forward that were valid, not understanding the industry, not understanding the exact nature of the business. And I I think this process has worked as it should, where between staff, the applicant, and even others in the industry have come together to answer those questions or to alleviate those concerns. So I think the process has done what it's supposed to have done, and it was handled quite well. Are we in a position now where I can make a recommendation? No.
No, this is a public hearing only, and so we will, if everyone is finished, then we will adjourn the meeting. Okay? So could I ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting, please? Councillor Campbell, Councillor Young. I'm sorry, have I missed a part?
Yes, you should call for further submissions from the public before we close the meeting.
Pardon me, I didn't see anybody else's hand up. Are there any further submissions or anyone else who wish to speak on the topic before we adjourn? I do apologize. No? Okay. So, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Youngberg, all in favor of adjourning the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, I think so.
Oh, no, I haven't.
This is on the agenda for a special
Okay, thanks.
meeting.
I'm just gonna.
Are we continuing on with the next? Do we have to pay you overtime?
I work. Just me.
So, do you want me to say that then?
Well, yeah, we can. There should be a mouse.